All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode number 160. And this week, I watched a movie called The Devil's Candy from 2017, I think. I looked it up, and it says 2015 in other places, but on Shudder, it's listed as 2017. And if you Google it, it says the initial release date was like March of 2017. So I'm going with 2017 on this one. But The Devil's Candy, 2017. I knew nothing about going into watching it. But man, I had a good time with this one. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was pretty good. It's fucking metal. I wasn't expecting to be as metal as it was. But yeah, there's a lot of heavy guitars. There's a lot of metal references. The end credits of the movie has "For Whom the Bell Tolls" that kicks in, and it's the first time in a while that I've watched all of the credits of a movie because I was just enjoying the song so much. But yeah, it's really good. All the performances in it are really good. It's a pretty simple story. It's a family moves into a house. It just so happens to be that there's some satanic stuff going on, and there is a member of the family who used to live there who is still under the sway of the devil's power, I guess, and is going on a murder rampage of sorts. But yeah, that's basically, I mean, that's the whole movie basically. But it's just really simple. I really like the relationship that the dad and the daughter in this movie had going on. It never reaches a point of like too like, when they're talking about music, it never reaches a point of like too cheesy for me. There is one point she's talking about like Kirk Hammett, and she's like, he's my favorite guitar hero and stuff. And I was like, I don't think anyone really refers to their favorite guitarist or whatever as guitar heroes, but that's really the only moment I can think of. There's also not a lot. There's a lot less, or a lot fewer actual music drops in this movie than I expected. I think there's only like 4 or 5 songs that actually play. For some reason, I thought this movie was going to be loaded with them. And then again, I guess this is a like independent movie. They probably don't have the budget to get all this music. But no, they got a couple songs in there, and I thought they were pretty neat. The movie as a whole, I think, is pretty neat. Like I said, and I would recommend you go watch this one. It's on Shudder if you have Shudder. It's on there for free. So why the fuck not? What else you gotta watch? it's 80 minutes long. It goes by pretty quick. So yeah, go check this one out. But yeah, hey, spoiler warning for The Devil's Candy. Terrible name, can I say, by the way? Terrible name. I don't know what they should have named it, but The Devil's Candy is just such a bleh. It's just such a terrible name. I feel like this movie might have been a little bigger if it didn't have such a shitty title. But spoiler warning for The Devil's Candy. I'm going to ruin everything about it. So, if you've never seen it before, you've been warned. Movie started off, and the first thing I noticed was it popped up, and it was an IFC Midnight movie, and I said, oh boy, we're in for a treat. As you know, we have a storied history with IFC Midnight movies on this show. Some of them surprisingly good. Others, the weirdest, worst shit you'll ever see in your life. So you never know what you're going to get with an IFC Midnight movie. So the movie starts off and it slowly like reveals this guy laying in bed. He's this overweight, bald, older looking dude. He's got like some gray stubble and stuff, and he's laying in bed. Hey, Future Thomas here. Also, I wanted to point out that Ray is like mentally challenged. He's like a child the whole movie, and for some reason, I don't think I ever mentioned that doing the whole podcast. Don't know why. That was a very big aspect of his character, but just wanted to point it out here as well. All right, back to this shit. And we hear like some fucking Latin, like someone like speaking, like whispering to him. And he like hears it too, and he opens his eyes and shit. And he's like, "Oh fuck!" And the next thing I know, this dude is plugging in a guitar and just doing like a power chord over and over, just bang, bang, and he's just eyeballing like this cross that he has hanging up over his bed while he's playing these chords. And eventually, this lady walks in and unplugs his guitar, and she's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, sorry." I can't hear him talking when I play it loud. And she's like, "I'm calling Daddy. We're taking you back to the hospital. You're not right." And she leaves, and the guy starts to hear the voice again, and his eye goes fucking crooked. His eye does this a lot throughout the movie, where he has these real shifty eyes, and one of them, I swear, can like move to where it's crooked from the other one. And he hears this voice, and the next thing we know, we see him go in the hallway where the lady is on the stair, and he fucking smashes her in the head with a guitar, and she falls down the stairs and dies. And eventually her husband comes home and sees her laying there dead on the floor. And we get the fucking title card of The Devil's Candy. And we get what I thought was Diamond Head, Am I Evil kicking in, and I was like, fuck yeah. But it ended up being Metallica's version of Am I Evil, which is still fine, but, I was looking forward to some Diamond Head, and then they gave me the Metallica remake, so, it's whatever. Also, as they're playing this, we go to the main character. His name is Jesse, but I will probably never call him Jesse. I will just call him Dad from here on. And this dude is fucking filthy looking the whole movie. He honestly looks like Alexander Skarsgård in The Northman throughout the whole movie, but he's not living in fucking Viking times. Like, he could take a shower, but he never does. He's just filthy. He's got this long, dirty blonde hair. He's a painter. His hands are always covered in paint. He's just fucking, it's just gross looking. In his car, he has a bobblehead of Kirk Hammett. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be Kirk Hammett, like on his dashboard. Him and his daughter are super into heavy music, but their mom isn't, and so they're driving and they're like playing this heavy shit, and the mom's like, "Can we turn it down to something not as heavy?" And the daughter's like, "What, you mean like Metallica?" And I was like, "God damn, they just threw a shot at Metallica, said Metallica isn't fucking real heavy music." But then the rest of the movie, like, all she does is talk about her love for Metallica, so I don't know. I don't know what the deal was with that, but whatever. These people, first thing they do in the movie is they go and they're looking at, it's a classic, we've seen this 100 times, where they're trying to buy a house, and it just so happens that this house over here, this big nice house with all this room, is cheaper than it should be, and that's because when we get there, we realize that it's the house that we saw from the beginning, where those people got fucking murdered, or where the mom got murdered. They're looking around this house, they're like, "Ah, shit, this is a nice fucking place." And I thought that they were just looking at it, but it ends up being, I think they had already fucking bought it when they were here, and they were just checking them out. The realtor guy is like, "Hey, I'm required by law to tell you guys about any death in the house." He's like, "In this case, there were 2. There was a old lady who accidentally fell down the stairs and died, and then her husband who couldn't force himself to live without her, who so presumably took his own life, is how I think they put it. It could be that actually happened, or it could be that Ray just came back and murdered the dad after that. Ray is the name of the guy who murdered the mom. We'll learn that later. So they're like, "Oh man, the mom is a little freaked out about it, but the dad is like, listen, it's really cheap. He says it's, you know, it's kind of romantic in a macabre sort of way about this guy. He can't force himself to live without his wife and shit. And so they're like, listen, this is our new home. We're going to be happy here. Let's take it, you know? So they take the house. After that, we go over to Ray, the guy from the beginning, who is walking up to a hotel, and he comes in and like he's not like saying anything, and he won't like meet the eyes of the guy like at the counter. He just like puts some money on the table, and he's like, oh, he's like, I want a room or whatever. And so the guy gives him a room. Also, Ray is in the same clothes that he was wearing. He wears this red, like, tracksuit the whole movie. So I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think they ever give a time frame of when that crime happened, when these people got murdered. So it seems like he murdered his parents, and then 2 days later they sold the house. Like, it seems like it's instant. Like, there's no gap in between when the crime happened to when they sold the house. So yeah, he gets a hotel room. And that night he's playing the guitar like super fucking loud to drown out the voices, and a cop gets called on him, and they're like, hey, people are complaining you're playing too loud, and he's like, oh, so sorry, you know. And so the cop's like, all right, don't make me fucking come back here. After that, we get a fucking moving in montage with the folks moving into their new house. There was a very ominous shot at the very end of this montage where the mom goes and like puts a picture up on the wall, and it's a picture of the family like all together. And the song that they were playing as they were moving in, it just keeps repeating already dead, already dead, already dead, as it's like focusing in on the picture of them. And I was like, oh fuck, is that supposed to be foreshadowing that all these fucks are already dead? And they've already sealed their fate by moving into this house. So, you know, we'll see if my prediction came true. The next morning, the dad drops his daughter off at school for the first time. It's her first day at school. And then once he gets home, he walks in the door, and he starts hearing the voices that we heard Ray hearing earlier. And he turns around and he like looks for where the voice is, and the front door to their house has like this glass. It's like a cross made in the glass. It's like clear glass, and then in the middle there's red tinted glass that forms a cross. And he like turns around and looks at the cross, and I was like, man, it'd be an interesting twist if it ended up being that like the possession in this movie, it was fucking Jesus who was possessing people. Spoiler alert, that's not what happened at all, but I thought that would have been cool. So yeah, he hears this voice. He goes walking through the house, like looking for it. Eventually he walks into his daughter's room and goes in her bedroom, and she's got all these fucking band posters up and everything. And in the very middle above her bed, she has a ghost poster. And I thought it was very funny once again, because she was talking about, you know, Metallica not being heavy. And I was like, well, you got a ghost poster, lady. And I like ghosts, but I mean, you want to talk about not heavy, you know. So he goes over and he takes down her ghost poster. And behind the ghost poster, we see the outline of where that cross was at the beginning of the movie that Ray was focusing on when he was playing his guitar. He gets fucking possessed by the devil or whatever. And he goes outside and starts painting, but he's fucking metal painting because it's playing some metal music, and he's spray painting shit. It is kind of cool because he puts on like his mask, his air filter mask. And so the song, as it's like going, every now and then you can just hear like like his breath like synced with the music. So it is kind of cool. And he's all shirtless and fucking ripped and shit. And eventually when he gets done, he looks, well, first, the mom comes home and she walks in and she's like, what are you doing out here? And he like moves aside and we see the painting, and it's this upside down black cross that looks like it's like oozing fucking ink or whatever from it. It's cool looking painting or whatever. Also, I forgot to mention that when he drops the daughter off for school, she's wearing a Slayer t-shirt and purple like leggings. And I was like, what type of fucking school is she going to where there's not a uniform? Like, every school has a uniform. I don't think there's another school in America that doesn't have a uniform. Correct me if I'm wrong. Comments, tell me. Tell me if I'm wrong. So we see his painting of the black upside down cross. And he's like, man, I don't even remember fucking drawing this shit, you know? Meanwhile, as they're talking outside, inside the doorbell rings, and the daughter goes to answer it, and it's Ray standing at the door. And at first, she's like, hello, you know, and he's not talking, he's not saying anything. And eventually he notices that she has a Flying V guitar tattoo on her shoulder. And he's like, I have one just like that. And this is when she's like, really? I always wanted a Flying V, a red Flying V, like my favorite guitar hero, Kirk Hammett, from Metallica. And as she's talking to him, eventually the mom and dad come back inside from out back. And they see this guy, and the dad walks up, and he's like, hello? You know, what the fuck do you want? And he's like, oh, I need to come home. You know, this was mommy and daddy's house, and they're dead now. I need to come home. I need to play it loud, but no one will let me play it loud. And he's like, listen, I'm sorry about your parents, but you don't fucking live here anymore, you know? And he, like, shuts the door on him. And Ray, like, keeps ringing the doorbell and wants back in. And the guy's like, I'm not letting you fucking in. He's like, I'm going to call the cops right now. So eventually Ray gives up, and he, like, walks away. And when he walks away, the daughter is upset. She's like, you didn't treat him how you would want people to treat you. You know, you were a dick to him. And she walks away. And I was like, that guy was clearly a weirdo. Like, what the fuck are you mad about, little girl? The next morning, the dad goes to take the daughter to school. And when they go outside, we see that Ray has brought his Flying V guitar and an amp and sat it up against the gate for her, presumably. And she's like, oh, sweet. I can keep it, right, Dad? And the dad's like, no, you can't fucking keep it. He's like, I was going to buy you a guitar for your birthday. And she's like, yeah, but it's not going to be a Flying V and a Marshall, is it? And he was like, oh, okay. So he drops her off at school. And after that, he drives to an art studio where apparently it's an art studio where the whole thing is they represent artists and they pay artists for their work and shit. And apparently he had been turned down by them before. And when he walks in, the lady's like, listen, we don't look at people twice. And he's like, no, listen to me. I have this painting. I don't even know where the fuck it came from. I don't remember painting it. I don't have any memory of doing it. It's like it just fucking came out of my soul. And so he gives her the hard drive, and she looks at his upside down cross painting. And she gets this like little smile, and she's like, all right, well, I'll see what I can do. So then after that, the dad goes back to his studio and he starts another painting, and we get this really cool fucking section of the movie where intercut with the dad painting, he had like this pre-made painting of butterflies that he had mentioned earlier that he was doing for like a church or a bank or something. And he starts painting over the butterflies. As that's happening, it's intercut with Ray watching this older brother and little brother and a dog out like playing in a field. And eventually like stalking them through the woods and watching them as they play and shit. And eventually the older brother and the dog are playing fetch, and the dog ends up running into the woods. And so the older brother goes to get the dog out of the woods. And so presumably you're like, okay, the older brother's going to get killed. We see Ray in the woods picking up like a big ass rock. And you're like, this kid's going to get fucking killed. But no, he goes running into the woods. And after he's gone, it shows the little brother on a swing, swinging up, and it goes slow motion. And when he comes back down, going back, we see Ray now standing behind him with a rock and fucking smashes this kid's head in. And then it cuts back over to the dad, who has painted a perfect fucking image of that exact kid's screaming face onto the body of a butterfly. So somehow he knows what's happening with Ray. Like, he can sense it. It was really cool how it was intercut. And it was really good, like, camera work. when he swings back and the fucking dude's just standing there. Like, it's really cool. So the dad gets done painting and he looks at it and he's like, holy fuck, how the fuck did I draw that shit? But then he's like, oh fuck, what time is it? And he goes outside and it's nighttime. And he realizes he forgot to pick up his daughter. So he drives to school and the daughter's like sitting all by herself out in front of the school when he pulls up, which is bullshit as well. Like, the teachers would never just leave a kid sitting there. Like, they would either stay there or find a way to get her home. They wouldn't just leave her there. So he's like, I'm real sorry. I was painting. I thought I was in there for 5 minutes and I came outside and it was fucking nighttime. She's pissed at him and she's like, this is only my second day at school and you already did this. But she says she'll forgive him if she gets to keep the Flying V and the Marshall. So then we get like a little scene of her like in her room, like, hello Cleveland, and she doesn't know how to play guitar, so it's just what you do when you pick up a guitar and you don't know how to play, where you're like running the pick up and down the fret, just like and just making noises on it, you know. So she's playing with her guitar, and then we go over to Ray, who still has his hotel room, and it turns out that that little kid that he hit over the head with a rock isn't fucking dead. He's got him wrapped up in like a blanket, and he's bringing him into his hotel. Ray, all the time, anytime we've been in his hotel room, has had a like documentary about Satan on the TV. Once again, we get the same thing that we kind of had earlier, where Ray goes in the bathroom and basically chops this kid up. We don't see it, but that's what it is. He's chopping this kid up, and then he's washing the blood away with like a mop and down the drain and shit. And it's intercut with like the blood getting washed away to like the dad making this painting with this red paint and shit. And eventually the mom walks in, and when he moves to the side, we see that he's added like 4 other faces of kids getting killed. And he's added a painting of his own daughter surrounded by fire being burned to death. And he's like, what the fuck? I didn't mean to draw this shit. What is this, you know? And the mom is like, this shit isn't right. That's our daughter you're drawing, you know, or you're painting paintings of her being burned to death. What the fuck are you doing? And he's like, I don't know. You know, like, he's like, I just went into a trance and I drew this shit. So that night they're sleeping. The dad has a nightmare about his daughter burning up. So he gets fucking angry and he goes into the his studio and he's gonna tear up the painting that he's been making with a box cutter. But right as like the blade of the box cutter touches the painting, he starts hearing all the voices inside of his head, and so he starts like freaking out and he drops his box cutter and he like puts the hand on the side of his head. And finally, it crescendos for a minute and then it like stops and everything's calm, and he goes to painting again. He's adding to it, and we see that he's added like a fucking 3-headed wildebeest skull looking beast thing in the middle of the fucking painting. It's some crazy looking demonic shit that he added in the middle. As he's painting that though, meanwhile, once again inside his house, Ray has fucking broken into his house and he snuck into the bed with his daughter. And as the daughter is sleeping, he tells her, he's like, you know, he wanted it to be you, but I'm not going to let that happen to you because you're special and shit. And she wakes up and sees him and starts to scream. So he like covers her mouth and he's like, no, don't be loud. If you be loud, I'll have to do that thing that I don't want to do. You know, just be calm. Just go back to sleep. And so he's like, if I take my hand off, you're not going to scream, right? And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to take my, I'm not going to scream. And so he takes his hand off, but of course she's lying. She starts screaming again. He starts to basically smother her to death, but the mom runs in and starts attacking him. And now both of them are screaming at him. He goes running out of the door, down the stairs to try to get out. As he's going out the front door, the dad is coming inside and they like run into each other and the dad falls down. The dad tries to like grab Ray's leg, but Ray just kicks him in the fucking face and gets outside. The dad goes outside and he's looking for him. And the next thing we know, Ray in his car that he has the lights on comes driving out of the darkness and tries to run over the dad. But he's able to dodge out of the way. So they call the police, put in a police report and shit. The daughter's all traumatized. She's scared that he's going to come back. The dad sleeps by, or like sits in a chair by the door all night long with a baseball bat. And he has more nightmares about his daughter burning up and that creature that he painted coming towards him. And we see Ray, like, silhouetted in red coming towards him. And eventually the mom, like, comes downstairs and taps him on the shoulder. And he almost, like, turns around and hits this bitch in the fucking face with a baseball bat. But he stops and he's like, oh, shit, sorry, I didn't know it was you. The daughter comes downstairs, and as they're standing there, she's like, I'm ready for school. And they're like, oh, you don't have to go to school today. And she's like, oh, it's safer than being here. And you can see on the dad's face, he's like, ah, fuck, that shit hurt his soul. So he drops his daughter off at school. He gives her a hug before she leaves, and he's like, I swear on my grave, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. He gets a call from the art studio lady and says that his painting has been approved, and the head of the art studio wants to meet with him. He's like, cool, what time? And she's like, 3 o'clock. And he's like, no, I can't do 3. I got to pick up my daughter for school. I already fucked up once. I'm not going to do it again. So Lady goes, all right, well, I can push it back to 2, but that's it. And so he's like, all right, let's do it. So the head of this art studio shows up. I recognize him. I was trying to look at what I would know him from. He's been in a ton of shit, but I couldn't find, like, one particular thing that I would know him from. But he shows up, and he's like, listen, you've been accepted into, we're going to represent you now. And he brings him, like, this bottle of cognac, and they're drinking. And the dude's like, listen, it's late enough. I got to go pick up my daughter. I appreciate all this. I'm really looking forward to it. And the guy's like, oh, we'll have one more drink with me. And he tries to pour him more, but the dad, like, stops him. And he's like, no, I got to go. So he starts driving to pick up his daughter. He's already running late, presumably from, the meeting. It ran a little late. So he's, like, behind this car that's going too slow for him. And he's, like, honking at the car. And eventually he decides to go around. But as he goes around, his tire just fucking pops. And he swerves and, like, hits a pole. And swerves some more. And eventually just winds up on the side of the road. The car, or the tires popped. He tries to start up the car, and the car won't start. It's just bad luck all around for this guy. He's trying to call someone on the cell phone, maybe his daughter, but, she's not answering. Eventually, someone does answer the phone, but we just hear that devil voice again, and he's like, oh, fuck. So he just takes off running towards the school. He gets there, and I guess when he's asking for the daughter, they tell him that she's not here, and so he goes running around, like, calling her name, and she's not answering. And we then go to, like, the mom who's on the phone with someone, and she's crying. And at this point, it is doing this ridiculous, it just keeps zooming in on the mom. It's been doing it for, like, the last minute. It just keeps going, boom, boom, making this, like, dramatic noise. It gets a little silly. But yeah, and they're telling her that the daughter isn't there or whatever. And we cut over and we see the daughter tied up, or not tied up, but duct taped. She's got her mouth duct taped and shit. And she looks up and we see Ray sitting there staring down at her. She starts screaming, and he, like, takes his finger and licks, or takes some blood off of her forehead and licks it. And he's like, he was right. You are the sweetest candy of all. I gotta do that thing I don't want to do now. So he goes into the bedroom and starts to, like, get out of his clothes and get ready to murder this chick. She manages to get out of the duct tape that he's tied her in, though, and get out of the window in the bathroom and go to the police. The parents show up to the police station and start hugging her, and she's hugging them back. But then she gets mad and looks at her dad, and she's like, you swore on my grave you wouldn't let anything happen, And he's like, "Ah, fuck, it's not my fault. The tire popped, Uh, so this cop takes the dad into like this interrogation room and tells him that your daughter's really lucky. And Ray did the same thing when he was 12 years old. He hit this little girl over the head with a rock and tried to bury her. And so he was sent to a psychiatric hospital for 20 years. And eventually he got out. The dad asked if it says why he did it in the report that the cop has. And the cop says that he did it because he said that the children were his candy. And eventually he went on to clarify that by him he meant Satan himself. So he feeds him children because that's Satan's favorite dessert, I guess. So they say they're going to put the parents in, or they're going to put the whole family in witness protection until they find Ray and arrest him. We then see Ray over to the gas station just getting a can full of gas and like walking down the road. The dad back home is finally pissed off and he's tearing up his fucking painting outside. We then go inside to where the mom and the daughter are inside, and they're like, "Hey, where's your dad at? He was just here." And we hear this car crash, and then we hear this woman screaming, and we realize that it's this cop lady. There was these two cops outside who were loading up like their luggage into cars to take them out of town. And so the mom goes and peeks out the window, and we see that Ray drove his car into the cop cars and has smashed the lady cop in between the two cars. And the guy cop that was there is crawling on the ground all fucked up too. Ray gets out and he grabs a fucking rock and he smashes that bitch in the head that's crushed in between the cars. He then smashes fucking homie's head that's on the ground. And now he has a gun because he picks up the cop's gun. And he starts to come inside. The dad has made his way back inside at this point, and he's peeking out and sees Ray coming up towards the door. He tells the daughter and the mom to go in another room and lock the door. We then get a recreation of the Shining scene where the dad gets his baseball bat and he sits over in the corner and he's holding it exactly like how fucking Wendy held it in The Shining. And the guy's like turning the knob and shit and trying to get in. Eventually he gets in and the dad goes to hit him with the baseball bat. But Ray just starts firing random shots around the house. And the dad gives up immediately and goes to try to run away. But he gets shot in the back and falls over like he's dead. Ray walks over to the door that the parent or the mom and the daughter had gone and hid themselves in. He shoots the knob off and opens up the door and goes inside and fires another gunshot, which presumably shoots the mom. And then we see him dragging the daughter out of the house and going away. And then it's just all quiet, and we just see the dad laying there bleeding out from being shot and the door open. And I kind of thought the movie was going to end there. I kind of thought it would have been a badass way to end the movie, honestly. But no, of course, the mom comes crawling out of that room, and yeah, she's been shot. She comes crawling out and sees her husband bleeding out, but she also sees Ray coming back in the house, still dragging her daughter by the hair, and he has the can of gas now. He walks up to her and puts the gun to her head, and it goes like slow motion, and everything's quiet, and we can see the mom mouthing, I love you and shit. But Ray pulls the trigger, and he's out of bullets. He's empty, so it doesn't kill her. So he just leaves her laying there, and he takes the girl upstairs, and he's pouring gas all the time they go up the stairs, and then flicks a match and lights the stairs on fire so that they can't follow them up there. The mom crawls over to the dad and is like shaking him and tells him, he needs to wake up, and, he has their daughter. We see the dad having a nightmare of the daughter being burned alive once again, and eventually he wakes up, and he's like, where is she, So we go where the dad drags the mom outside, gets her to safety. We then see Ray and the daughter up in her bedroom. He's lit the whole bedroom on fire, and he's standing there with her, and he's like, oh, can't you hear the voices? This is beautiful and shit. The dad goes and grabs a ladder and climbs up to her window and breaks it and jumps in. This causes a distraction that lets the daughter bite Ray's hand, and she manages to get away from him. The dad jumps on top of Ray and punches him in the face a couple times. But then Ray manages to like stick his thumb in the bullet hole where he had shot him, and the dad like falls over and passes out again. Ray goes after the daughter and is just walking through the fire and like burning up and shit. He looks fucking crazy. But the dad comes up behind him with the Flying V guitar that he had given the daughter earlier and smashes it over his head. And eventually it breaks the guitar, and so he takes the like broken neck that has like the sharp wood at the end and stabs him down into the fucking head or the neck, wherever he stabbed him. The daughter then is like still surrounded by fire, and so the dad tells her, you know, you need to jump through the fire and come to me. I'll catch you. It'll be okay. And this is supposed to be a moment where she like regains her trust in her father. And so she jumps through the fire and he catches her and he's like, I got you, you know? And so he gets her through the window. They both crawl out. She goes crawling over to the mom and is like hugging the mom. And then the dad starts hearing the voices again. And I was like, oh fuck, is he going to get possessed and like go back into the house or something? But instead he goes walking off and the mom's like, where are you going? And we get a flashback to when the mom and him were talking in his painting studio earlier, and he said like he has these voices, he can hear and feel those kids inside of him, and he doesn't know why. Apparently, it's because when we've seen Ray burying the body parts, he's just been burying them literally in the backyard of this guy's house. He goes over and just brushes like one hand of dirt away, and we see the suitcases that he's been burying these kids in. So very shallow grave for these bodies. So he finds the suitcases, and then the sun comes out. It had been like nighttime, and so the sun's coming up, and then it cuts to black, and fucking For Whom the Bell Tolls kicks in, and that is the end of The Devil's Candy. Let's do best of, worst of for this one. My best of is gonna be the fucking him painting an intercut with the guy with Ray in the woods, and you think he's going to kill the older brother, but it ends up being the younger brother he gets. The camera work, the reveal when he's swinging back, intercut with the reveal that the dad is like aware of what's happening, but he doesn't know why he's aware, and he's able to paint a perfect picture of that kid's head. It was really cool. I really liked it. Worst of? Shit, I don't know. Worst of, honestly, I might just say, like, the random thrown in, like, oh, he was burying the bodies on my property. That's why I knew what was happening. Just because it seemed tacked on. It's like they added that line earlier, and they were like, oh, yeah, we got to pay that off and explain why he knew about those kids. I guess let's just say they were being buried on his land. And that was the best they could come up with. So, I don't know. That just kind of felt flat. But, yeah, that'll be my worst stuff. And that's it for The Devil's Candy. I couldn't find a budget or anything. I don't know if it came out in theaters. Obviously, there was still a budget, but I couldn't find it. But I think it might have just been straight to, like, IFC or whatever. But yeah, The Devil's Candy, surprising movie. Like I said, really liked it. It's got some really cool camera work. The story is really simple. It's really good. Yeah. It's the one, you know, when he shoots the dad and goes in and shoots in the room and drags the daughter out, it's all just one shot, and it all just stays like from the front door to where you don't see any of this happening like up close. It's all like in front of you, and it just stays there the whole time until he drags her out. It's just really simple, and it's really well done, and I really liked it. This one surprised me a lot. So go check it out if what I've said about it interests you at all, and you want to watch it. It's on Shudder, like I mentioned, so it's easy to find. But besides that, that's it. Next week, I don't know what the fuck we're watching, but it'll be something. Go check out the gaming channel. Me and Maverick finally finished Saints Row, so there should be a Saints Row video pretty soon if it's not out. Well, no, it won't be out by the time this is out, but it should be out pretty soon. So look out for that. And yeah, that's it. See you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.